Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap, you and myself have been, inundated with a flurry of NBA moves, and we could spend the entire program talking about and breaking down each and every move. But I think what we want to do actually is start off with a move that hasn't happened, or two moves, I should say, that haven't happened and have sort of brought free agency to a screeching halt almost, and that is the trade request of one Kevin Durant and the just the crazy status always of Kyrie Irving and the implosion of the Brooklyn Nets. So while we have all these things that have happened, it's the things that haven't happened that have really dominated the headlines the past week for the NBA.
So all everyone's talking about is Kevin Durant. Is he going to be traded by the Brooklyn Nets? If so, where is he going to go? Is Kyrie headed to the Lakers? I think that's pretty much a done deal. It feels, I would say 95% that Kyrie is going to end up playing for the Lakers next year. Now, what the Lakers have to send back to Brooklyn, that's up for debate. Is it going to be Russell Westbrook and his contract, which has 1 year left? Will there be some sort of draft picks involved? The Lakers don't have many because they used up a ton of them to get Westbrook and also to get Anthony Davis a few years ago. So what exactly do they have to send back to Brooklyn for Kyrie Irving? I just feel that that's going to happen because the market isn't really huge for Kyrie Irving because he's kind of put it out there that he wants to return with LeBron James and become a Los Angeles Laker. The Durant piece of this is interesting because everyone is interested in Kevin Durant. We're still talking about an all-time great player, but now what's it going to take to get Durant out of Brooklyn? By the way, his 4-year contract extension doesn't even go into effect until this year, and he's already requested a trade, which only in the NBA could something like that happen. So the first team that came to mind was one that was put out there a week ago, Phoenix, Miami. Those seem to be two destinations he wants to go. But do they have the pieces to send back to Brooklyn? And also the thing about Kevin Durant, when he moved on before, it was as a free agent. So he could pick his destination and he would go to ready-made teams, or at least he'd kind of put his team together. This is going to be a little bit different. The Nets are going to have to trade him. They'll probably try to cooperate, but also they want to look out for their best deal. And also the team that gets him is going to have to send back valuable assets to get him. So that team's not going to be as strong as he thinks. And Durant does like a loaded team. He's never really shown to be the guy that can go in like LeBron did in Cleveland the second time or with the Lakers, where he can go in and kind of set the whole thing up and build the team. Durant likes to step into a ready-made championship contender. Yeah, that's Phoenix and Miami, but to get Durant, those teams are going to have to give back a lot, and they would be stronger with Durant, but not as much as say, the Warriors were back in 2016.
Right, and the Nets are in an interesting situation, Sap, where, things are obviously imploding around them, but they still, they kind of control the contract status of both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And I know because Kyrie just opted in for $36 million just for this year, but neither of those guys has a no trade clause, as those are very rare in the NBA. LeBron might be the only one who has one. I'm not even sure if he does. And so, as you mentioned, Durant has 4 years left on his. So, the Nets can be patient. They don't have to do this immediately. And I from what I'm gathering, there seems to be a sense that the Durant situation especially could linger on until training camp, because with those years on his contract, the Nets aren't exactly, gung-ho to trade one of the best players in the league. Because, whenever you're trading a star player or a player close to Kevin Durant's caliber, you're not going to get, an equal return. That's just not how it works when you're trading a star player. And plus now, Sap, the market has been sort of dictated a little bit with some of these trades that happened, moves happened prior to Kevin Durant's trade request. The DeJounte Murray trade from San Antonio to Atlanta and the Rudy Gobert trade from Utah to Minnesota have put a premium on a lot of unprotected draft picks. So you would imagine, okay, Kevin Durant, far superior player than those two guys. So if Rudy Gobert commanded 4 unprotected draft picks and DeJounte Murray commanded 3 unprotected draft picks, then what's Kevin Durant worth? 50 unprotected draft picks. So I think the Nets sort of, they have the ability to slow play this with Durant. With Kyrie, it does seem like he's going to be a Laker, but at the same time, based off of what Kyrie has done to sort of implode the Nets organization, I don't feel like they necessarily want to send him to his preferred destination. There might be some spite going on because right now, Sap, why would that trade have not been completed already? I don't think the Lakers have much to offer. I don't think that the Westbrook, Timothy, Horton Tucker, and draft picks in 2050 are particularly valuable to the Nets. So I think that they are trying to see if they can get any other takers out there. The problem is Kyrie is such damaged goods because he's now 3 for 3 in teams that he's imploded. There's literally the Lakers seem to be the only team that's interested in him. And I think it's really LeBron that's interested in him. I'm not sure that the organization is interested in him, as we can talk about with Jeannie Buss's weird tweet the other day, Sap.
Right. I mean, the Lakers are in somewhat of a desperate situation. You've got LeBron James going into his 20th year, has had some injury concerns the last couple of years. Anthony Davis always has injury concerns. I mean, in the perfect world, a healthy LeBron, a healthy Anthony Davis, and engaged Kyrie Irving, that could be a championship caliber team. But those are a lot of big question marks. I don't question LeBron necessarily because I think he's always invested. Just the fact that he's getting older and sometimes it's out of his hands whether he can last an entire season. With Anthony Davis, is he putting time in the offseason? I mean, he seemed to be proud to say last month that he hadn't touched a basketball since the season ended, which I don't think you want to get out there if you're trying to prove that you're a serious basketball player. And then you've got Kyrie Irving, who it appears that basketball's 4th or 5th or 6th on his list of most important things to do. But there's no real market for Kyrie Irving because teams aren't going to want to give up much to bring in a guy who could retire by midseason. You don't know what Kyrie Irving is going to do going forward. So I think he is going to end up with the Lakers. It's kind of on a slow burn right now, and we'll see what the Lakers will have to send to Brooklyn to make this possibility happen. In terms of Kevin Durant, when I saw what Rudy Gobert got from what Utah got from Minnesota for Rudy Gobert, I'm like, what the hell is Kevin Durant going to net? I mean, the Rudy Gobert trade felt like the Herschel Walker trade. It's like you kept hearing more and more and more, and it ended up being like 9 pieces, whether it be players or draft picks for Rudy Gobert. Then Kevin Durant, they might as well just exchange the entire franchise for him because even at 34 years old, he's a much better player than Rudy Gobert. So the Nets, they can be smart here and try to get as much as they can, and they'll just hold on as long as they can. It doesn't have to happen this week. It can happen later in the month because, again, it's not like the NFL where you're going to get a quarterback and you got to bring him in and he's got to learn your offense and all of that type of stuff. I mean, Kevin Durant can roll out of bed and score 30, quickly.
Yeah, and again, because of the contract status where he has, 4 years on it, I don't think the Nets feel like they have to rush into this by any means. Their organization's already crumbling at the seams. I don't think it makes a difference whether they trade Kevin Durant today, tomorrow, or, months from now. As far as the teams that he's requested, obviously a lot's been talked about Phoenix and Miami, that they were the 2 1 seeds in each conference. And this is Kevin Durant being a front runner, which I think is fair criticism. But, there is difficulty in those 2 teams, as you alluded to, Sap, with acquiring Kevin Durant, not just because they would have to give up significant pieces to get him. And so they wouldn't necessarily be the same team that he walks onto. But are the pieces good enough for Brooklyn? Because the way that the NBA CBA is structured, the Nets couldn't go to Miami and say, we want Bam Adebayo because they have already traded for Ben Simmons. You can't trade for 2 guys who just signed their on the first deal after their rookie extension. And that's Bam Adebayo. So they can't acquire Bam Adebayo. So that leaves you with, okay, well, we want Jimmy Butler. Well, does Kevin Durant really want to go to the Miami Heat if they don't have Jimmy Butler? Probably not. And then, so really is the guy that you want to build a package around Tyler Hero, who really had a poor playoffs and maybe as we know, he's a good 6 man who won 6th man of the year, but is he a guy that you can build your team around? I don't think so. So I don't know that that's great return. And as far as the Suns go, Sap, you hear a lot about DeAndre Ayton being the guy involved in it, but he has to play ball with it. He's a restricted free agent, but if he doesn't want to play for Brooklyn, and if Brooklyn doesn't want to pay him what he wants to be paid, which is a max contract, then that trade's not working out either. So, there are some strong caveats to those 2 teams being Durant's requested teams that I don't know that Brooklyn would necessarily be interested in either of the packages. And you have a lot of other, factors that aren't just, Durant wants to go to these teams, okay, it's going to happen. It's a fait accompli. I think a team that people have been talking about recently that you could be on the lookout for, and I'm curious if you agree with me, Sap, is the Toronto Raptors, who did a similar move with Kawhi Leonard, except for he only had a year left on his deal. Kevin Durant has 4, and they have the ammunition to go get him, whether it be Pascal Siakam or Scotty Barnes, the reigning rookie of the year. I think either of those pieces would be more enticing to Brooklyn than whatever they would get from Miami, Tyler Hero, or what they could potentially get from Phoenix and what would be maybe DeAndre Ayton or Bridges.
Masai Ujiri, who runs the Toronto Raptors, we're both huge fans of his. I think he's the best executive in the sport. I think he's quite capable of making this move happen. He did it 4 years ago, actually, for Kawhi Leonard. And as you said, it was only for 1 year. This is for 4 years. Apparently, Kevin Durant grew up, his favorite team is the Toronto Raptors. Whatever the hell that means, I don't think that's going to have a major effect on that. He's going to want to go where he's comfortable playing with a chance to win a championship. Those types of things. Again, if it's Pascal Siakam, draft picks, and maybe some other pieces, then you've got Durant with Scotty Barnes. Now you can kind of build something there. Van Fleet, Fred Van Fleet obviously is your point guard, and Scotty Barnes to me is going to be an all-star, if not next year, shortly thereafter. I'm very high on him. So there's some pieces there, and I'm sure Durant respects Masai Ujiri, Nick Nurse. They have a team that did a really good job last year when you're considering that they were dealing with the COVID issues north of the border and also some injuries, and no one was really high on them. And they played pretty well down the stretch, ended up being the 5 seed before losing to Philadelphia in the first round. So that's a really well-run organization. We've heard the Celtics could be interested. I think it would start with Jaylen Brown. It would be Jaylen Brown, maybe one other young player, and then some draft picks for Kevin Durant. Would Durant want to play here? Again, he has no say. He doesn't have the no trade contract, but I think Brooklyn's going to try to figure out a way to make sure that it works out. They can get as much as they can in return for Kevin Durant. This is just going to dominate the NBA news until it's done. And like you said, it could linger on for a month. I remember when Kevin Garnett was traded from Minnesota to the Celtics, that happened in late July. So, we could be sitting here in 3 weeks still talking about where's Kevin Durant going.
Yeah, and I think it's been holding up some of the second tier free agents because they want to see that the agents want to see what the market is and who gets moved, and then what team subsequently has needs to fill after a Kevin Durant trade, because you assume it would be a lot of moving pieces. So it's kind of grinded free agency down to a bit of a halt here. So we'll have to see what happens, but obviously a player Kevin Durant's caliber, who has that many years left on his contract, it's almost an unprecedented sort of thing in the NBA to request a trade at that status with that many years left on your deal. So the NBA is constantly surprising. And the Kyrie Irving situation remains interesting because we know the talent, but we also know that, again, like I said, Sap, 3 for 3 in imploding teams, Cleveland, Boston, and now Brooklyn. He will just, walk away when he feels like it, play basketball hard when he feels like it, and not give a crap when he feels like it. So I think rightfully so, a lot of teams are gun shy. The Lakers, though, I wouldn't, a lot of people are saying the Lakers are considering, the bold move of adding Kyrie Irving. I don't really consider it a bold move. If they could do the framework that's been discussed, Sap, and trade Westbrook and, spare parts for Kyrie Irving, that's a massive upgrade. I don't think that's bold at all. The Lakers have nothing to lose at that point.
No, they want to get rid of Westbrook. He has 1 year left at $47 million. So, you could trade Westbrook and maybe THT or some other players that they have. They have this deep roster of garbage, but you could maybe cobble together a few players. Draft picks are going to be difficult because they really don't have any. And then you go out and get Kyrie Irving, and maybe to make the contracts work, maybe Seth Curry is someone who goes from Brooklyn to LA, which would be a really good move for the Lakers because, again, LeBron James benefits by having those really good shooters. That's still stuff that I think is going to happen eventually. But I don't think it's a real bold move because the Lakers didn't even make the playoffs last year. If they connect on this and Kyrie Irving is engaged for this season, which he may be, knowing that he only has a 1 year deal in place, then the Lakers could strike and hit a home run here. And again, this is only for 1 or 2 years with LeBron going into his 20th year. This is not a long-term move by the Lakers. They just want to try to get back into contention this year and be relevant.
I feel like it's set up, Sap, for, like, how much I despise Kyrie Irving and despise the Lakers. Like the fact that he would go to Lakers, like it seems like it would set up for a Celtics Lakers finals, almost like it's like a scripted sort of thing.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah, Kyrie Irving coming back to TD Garden as a member of the Lakers of all teams.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think he heard a lot as a member of the Brooklyn Nets. How would it be with Kyrie with the Lakers and Anthony Davis, who we know didn't want to come to Boston, and his dad had some things to say about the Celtics organization. And obviously, I think people in Boston respect but hate LeBron James. That would be magnificent. That would be a great finals. I'd be up for it.
Sap, so before we go talk about the Celtics, because they've made some really strong moves, in my opinion, can we talk about this Jeannie Buss tweet, since we're talking about the Lakers? And a lot of people are trying to, play Twitter detective and read into it. And since you are intimately involved in the Lakers organization by virtue of being a big, LeBron guy, we'll see if you can take a crack at it. So she tweeted, I miss KB, Kobe Bryant. He would understand and explain everything that I'm not allowed to. Honestly, he was the greatest Laker ever. He understood team over self, meaning your rewards would come if you value team goals over your own, then everything would fall into place. All can reply. All right, Sap, Twitter detective mode. What the hell is Jeannie Buss talking about here?
Well, when she said KB, I thought it was Kwame Brown, but
yeah,
obviously it's Kobe Bryant. It's Kobe Bryant.
He is a great Laker.
Question. A great Laker, not quite as great as Kobe Bryant. The first thing is Kobe's the greatest Laker, which I'm going to push back on quickly. And I tweeted something out at John Sapp 25. And the discussion always is, who's the greatest Laker? Is it Magic or Kobe? And I think it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because I know Kareem played his first 5 or 6 years with the Milwaukee Bucks. But look at in terms of games played. Kobe played 1,346 games with the Lakers. Kareem played 1,093 games with the Lakers, and Magic Johnson played 906 games with the Lakers. So Kareem played more games with the Lakers than Magic did. And I think if we're power ranking those three players in terms of all-time greatness, that Kareem is the best of the three. So I think Kareem's the greatest Laker of all time. But I get it that Laker fans think it's either Kobe or Magic, depending on which year you grew up watching them. Exactly. I would say it's Magic because I'm 59 years old. You would probably say Kobe because you're in your early 30s. So that's more of a generational thing.
I'd still say Magic.
I would. Well, you're an old soul.
Me,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, Magic to me is a greater player than Kobe.
Well, we're going to have some Laker fans on, Sap, later in the postseason, and we'll ask them that question. And this guy, go check him out, by the way, the pettiest Laker LA fan on Twitter. Very funny. And he's a little younger than me. He would definitely say Kobe. He's, a Kobe fiend. So I think, it depends. Mostly it depends on when you're born.
Yeah. And Magic had Kareem and Kobe had Shaq. I mean, that helped as well. And although Kobe did win 2 without Shaq, he had Paul Gasol as his second best player. So, that's quite an accomplishment, not to knock Paul Gasol, but Gasol's not Kareem and not Shaq, not even close. But, I just pushed back on that. But to really what the idea of this was that Kobe would understand, team over self. Well, Kobe was a pretty selfish player. I mean, there were times he requested trades. He didn't get along with all his teammates, or quite frankly, didn't get along with most of his teammates, wanted to move on from Phil Jackson. It wasn't all, ice cream and rainbows with Kobe and the Lakers.
Revisionist history.
Which is always the case. And I've always said this about Kobe Bryant. Love Kobe Bryant. I think he's one of the most interesting players in the history of the league. I think he's the 9th greatest player in the history of the league. I think he's slightly overrated. When he gets put into the same stratosphere as Jordan and LeBron, I push back. And I think he's somewhat overrated. But you can be a great player, an all-time great, and be overrated at the same time. I think this almost seemed to be, everyone thinks it's a slight at LeBron because LeBron is now the face of the Lakers, and Jeannie Buss can't really say what she wants because LeBron's got his hands in a lot of what goes on with the Lakers, with Clutch Sports and Rich Paul and, Maverick Carter, whoever else. I don't know how the machinations are of that, but I think a lot of people think it's a slight against LeBron. I also think it might be a slight against Magic Johnson. First of all, calling Kobe the greatest Laker is a slap in the face to Magic Johnson, right? Let's leave Kareem out of it because Kareem probably couldn't care less about that.
No, I don't think he gives two damns about it.
Yeah, he's got other things on his mind. He's a deep thinker and intellectual. I don't think he cares where we rate him. Magic, I think, probably still feels that he's the greatest Laker. So it almost feels like a little bit of a slight at Magic. And we do remember 3 years ago when Magic abruptly quit the Lakers, had this great relationship with Jeannie Buss. Magic said we're almost like brother and sister. That's how close they are. I don't know if that's been repaired. I understand it has been, but it almost seems to be some sort of slight at Magic as much as anything else. That, where are my Lakers is what Jeannie Buss is saying, to speak up here and try to rectify what the problem is. Is it a slight at LeBron? Probably. Magic, yes. Also, Kyrie Irving, just come here, let's get it done, let's win a championship, and, let's try to figure out a way for this to happen. Or she just was having a bad day. I don't know. And maybe Linda Rambis wasn't around to hear about what she had to say.
I think a lot of the Twitter speculation is just that, Sap, that it's about Kyrie Irving, and she's sort of like hemming and hawing, like, do I bring this guy in, this destroyer of worlds into this Laker organization? Is it worth trying to get a guy who's legitimately crazy just for a chance to potentially be better and win a championship? I think pretty much every Laker fan would say yes. But I mean, again, like you said, it could just be that she's having a bad day. I'm not sure. But, if you're sending out a cryptic tweet like that, you got to expect people are going to speculate every which way. And I for all the, hype we get about Jeannie Buss, and, they made her look like a genius in winning time, and you hear all this great stuff. I don't think she's done a better job than her brothers, who she fired. I don't think that she's proven to do any sort of better job than them. I don't see that she's really great at running this team. I don't think the Lakers, I've said this many times, Sap, and I think you've agreed with me for the most part, are a well-run team. I don't think they are. No. They just happen to be in LA, and that's, awesome for them. But I don't think they're well run, and I don't think that she's any sort of basketball savant by any stretch.
No, I think she understands marketing. The value of the franchise has gone up astronomically. Their TV deal locally is $200 million a year. We know that the national TV deal, which should go into effect in about 3 years, is going to net every team $250 million. So the Lakers are a huge brand. I understand that. But in terms of the basketball side of things, they've really only contended once in the last 10 years, and they did win the title in 2020 with LeBron and Anthony Davis. But LeBron selected them. That wasn't exactly like a stroke of genius. They didn't wake up one day and go, ooh, let's go get LeBron James. He kind of picked them.
Yeah, they didn't have to put on like a full court press pitch for him or anything like that.
No, they didn't have to meet him at the Hamptons or in that case, somewhere in Southern California to make a pitch. We all knew he was going to the Lakers. That was the least surprising thing that ever happened in the NBA over the last 10 years. That was not a surprise. And then when you get LeBron, you're able to bring in other pieces. You're able to send a lot to get Anthony Davis. You tried to do the same thing with Russell Westbrook. Yeah, I mean, they did win a title, which is important. But the other 9 years of the last 10, they've been arguably the worst team in basketball. I mean, even Kobe's last 3 years, they averaged 22 wins a year. So it was trending in the wrong direction back then. And remember, they paid Kobe a lot of money because they had this new cable deal, and the cable company was like, you better keep Kobe because we need him to drive ratings. That's essentially why that continued on, even though Kobe wasn't quite the same player. Look, who is it at an advanced age of 38, 39, whatever the case may be. So I think that the last 10 years, they've been poorly run. They did sneak that championship in there, which is important. You like to have that championship, but other than that, they've been mismanaged. Look, they didn't even make a play-in tournament last year. How the hell does that happen?
And Saf, they did a very poor job developing players who they then developed elsewhere. D'Angelo Russell developed once he left the Lakers organization. Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, even Lonzo Ball played much better after he left the Lakers. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they have great player development. Now, obviously, they're a veteran team. Last year, they were the oldest team in the league by a wide margin. So, player development isn't super important then, but I think that's just another organizational issue that they've had, is that they had a lot of high picks, and the players that they drafted actually, for the most part, turned out to be pretty damn good players, but not for the Lakers.
No. I mean, they could have had Jaylen Brown in 2016. Instead, they took Brandon Ingram. And Ingram's really good. I'd say Brown is slightly better. And Brown's been able to develop in a more stable situation with the Celtics. In 2017, they took Lonzo Ball, which we all knew they were going to do. They could have taken Jason Tatum. I mean, just picture the Lakers with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Now, the only thing is they would have had to trade one or both of them to get Anthony Davis. And now you'd really look back on that trade and go, wow, that's a disaster, because Tatum right now is a more valuable commodity than Anthony Davis is. And I think Jaylen Brown is as valuable a commodity because Anthony Davis can't stay on the court more than half the season. So, yeah, they just haven't developed players the way that you would anticipate them doing that. But the draft picks were pretty good. Even Julius Randle was 7th overall in 2014. He's had a nice career. Russell, Ingram, and Lonzo Ball, if he's healthy, are nice players. So they could have developed those players, and then you add LeBron in, and maybe you've got something
Kuzma
for the next few years.
Solid pick.
Kyle Kuzma was a really good pick late in the first round. I mean,
they've drafted well, but they don't develop well.
They don't develop them. They don't have patience. They don't, allow things to kind of slow burn. They have to do everything quickly because it's a intense market. And then when you go sign LeBron, it's like, okay, we got to make this happen right away. The entire organization becomes a microwave, and you got to go get ready-made players because LeBron's probably not in the business right now of developing young players, especially going into his 20th year. I mean, maybe he's going to develop his son at some point, but I don't think he's really interested in developing rookies at this point.
No, and he hasn't been, since he left Cleveland the first time. When he came back to Cleveland after Miami, he traded, they had the number 1 pick, and he wanted them to trade Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love. And look, they won a championship, made a bunch of finals with him. So, yeah, hard to say that was the wrong decision, but he's got no interest in playing with, rookies. No. It's like, just like we said for years, Sap with Tom Brady, when the Patriots are bringing young wide receivers, Brady didn't want to play with them. He didn't have the patience to help them figure it out. And it was probably to some players' detriment who could have stuck around the NFL for a little bit longer, but he wasn't doing it. And the same for LeBron James. Once you reach that level of greatness that those guys have reached, you have no patience anymore. You just expect greatness from everybody. And sometimes that works to, most of the time it works to the team's advantage. Sometimes it doesn't. Sap, an interesting parallel is also the other team that's in the biggest market in the NBA. The Knicks also have lacked patience, but they have not been able to bring in the free agents like the Lakers have. So the Knicks have tried to do the same thing where they say, okay, we want to trade all these young guys for a player, but they haven't identified the right guy, and the guys that they want to sign don't come there. And now they've spent $110 million on Jalen Brunson, and that's their guy now. So, it's sort of same mentality, but not the same results for the Knicks.
Much better weather in Southern California. And again, the Lakers brand is much bigger than the Knicks brand. It's glamorous. It's sexy. So you get Shaq going there. You get LeBron going there. Look, management pulled it off in 1996 when they traded for Kobe Bryant, who was drafted 13th overall by Charlotte, said he wasn't going to play there. And they were able to move Vlade Divac for Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest trades in NBA history. They struck it rich with Kobe Bryant, but then they also were able to bring in Shaq in 1996, and they won, obviously those titles together. And then you get LeBron, and pieces can fall into place. But you're right, the Knicks are a disaster. No clue why they signed Jalen Brunson to a 4-year, $110 million contract. Good for him. I'm all in favor of players making as much as they can. But if that's going to move the needle, then I'm misreading what Jalen Brunson is.
They're not going to be, he might win them 1 or 2 more games than what they were. Right. I mean, I like Jalen Brunson. I think he's a good player, but I would not pay him that amount of money. And what I think, I will give Jeanie Buss and the Lakers credit with this. I agree with you. They know branding. They know the power of that Lakers brand, and they use it wisely when they can. The Knicks think that they have the same brand as the Lakers, and they are delusional about the power of their brand, which has no sway to NBA free agents whatsoever. The Knicks brand means nothing to anybody who's in the NBA. It hasn't meant anything to anybody in a long time. So they're trying to use the same sort of strategy as the Lakers, but they have completely deluded themselves into thinking that they can do what the Lakers can do. So just
since the last time the Knicks won a championship in 1973, you weren't even thought of being born. I wasn't
even a sperm yet.
No, not even close to it. I was 10 years old. I wish I could go back to being 10 years old. But since 1973, the last time the Knicks won an NBA championship, the Lakers have won 11 of them.
Yeah, it's not good. Not good
no.
for the Knicks. But yeah, so that's another big free agency move. But Sam, before we get out of here, you do want to talk about what the Celtics have done, which, I was very trepidatious, in fact, downright negative about Brad Stevens taking over the job as general manager of the team, replacing Danny Ainge. Not that I wasn't okay with Danny Ainge moving on, because I thought it was time, but I felt like he got fired from being a coach and then promoted, which I didn't understand. He had no experience on the job, but credit where credit's due. He's done a really good job. The Al Horford move last offseason was a stroke of genius because Kemba Walker has negative value. And we saw how good Al Horford was. They don't get to the finals without him. And now this offseason, the Celtics have acquired Danilo Gallinari, a really good bench scorer, 3-point shooter, not a good defender, but they don't really need him to be because he got waived in the Spurs deal. And they made a trade for a player who I think is perennially underrated in Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers. All they had to do to give up him was give up a top 12 protected pick, Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, and some other filler. And they get a guy who's a 50, 40, 90 player and average 19 points a game. The caveat with him is he has not been particularly healthy, but he shouldn't have to log massive minutes like he's had in the past couple of years because the Celtics don't need him to score 20 points a game. So 2 moves, Sap, that I think the Celtics did. I give them A's on both of those moves. Very little risk involved with either of them. And I think if this was their roster in the finals, if this was their roster healthy, I think they would have won the NBA finals.
Yeah, without question, because they lack depth against Golden State. They lack bench scoring, which Gallinari and Brogdon will give them. Brogdon may even be in the starting lineup. You know, with the last name of Sapichetti, that I'm going to be happy with a player by the name of Danilo Gallinari coming to the Celtics. That's perfect. I think he'll give them some instant offense off the bench. Again, he's a liability on defense. But you know what? You can't have all great defensive players. You need to have some guys who can put the freaking ball in the basket. They lack that in the finals. If I heard one more time that Jordan Poole was unplayable in the finals because of his defense, I was going to choke myself because every time I saw him out there, he was scoring and hitting big shots at the end of the third quarter from 35 feet and taking momentum back from the Celtics and giving it to Golden State. There are times where, okay, you don't play great defense, but you know what? You score points, and that's needed in the NBA.
So God, was it needed in the finals, Sap?
It sure was. I mean, their offense was terrible in 4 of the 6 games. So Gallinari will provide offense. When I heard of the Brogdon trade, I kept thinking that it was a trade proposed by somebody on talk radio. Like, you're listening to talk radio, and okay, we're going to trade Tice and Nesmith and a couple other guys at the end of the bench, and then a first-round pick for a guy who's a borderline all-star caliber player, Malcolm Brogdon, who is 30 years old and, came into the league when he was 24 because he had some injury concerns, but was rookie of the year and seemed to really fit in perfectly with Milwaukee until they couldn't afford him. Then he went to Indiana, and his three-point shooting went down a little bit in Indiana, but I think it'll go back up here because his three-point shooting was really good in Milwaukee when he was playing with Giannis. So now he's going to be playing with Tatum and Brown and better players. That should give him more open looks. When I saw that trade come in, I said, is this for real? I mean, did this really happen? And give credit to Brad Stevens for pulling this off. It seems like highway robbery on the part of Brad Stevens to get a player like Brogdon. And again, you can have some load management with him to make sure that he's healthy because he has missed roughly a third of his games in his 6-year career, which can be a problem. But they're very, very deep, adding Gallinari and Brogdon on. My only concern is now you go 10 deep. This will fall on Coach Ime Udoka to make sure that everybody gets enough minutes, because now Grant Williams is probably going to lose some minutes to Gallinari. What's going to happen at the point with Marcus Smart, Derek White? How can you kind of keep everybody happy? But I think the big thing here is Jason Tatum, even more so than Jaylen Brown, you're going to have to start to maybe load manage Jason Tatum if the case was that he was exhausted by the time he got to the finals because he's played more minutes than any player in the league since the bubble. Right. Then that depth comes in handy in a long season.
Absolutely. And, you got a guy that what the Celtics were, what fans were saying was we need playmaking, we need shooting. Brogdon does both of those things. Gallinari does the shooting. So essentially what you did was you traded 2 guys who were not in your rotation and Daniel Tice and Aaron Nesmith. And you brought back 2 guys that should be, big contributors in Gallinari and Brogdon. So, I mean, how can you ask for better than that, Sap? You trade 2 guys that you don't play for 2 guys that you're going to play, and they both happen to be high-level players. I mean, Brad Stevens did a tremendous job to do that. And credit to, we've bashed ownership a lot, and I think deservedly so. They haven't paid the tax in years. And now with the Brogdon trade, they are going to go into the luxury tax and pay it. Now's the time to do it. You were 2 games away from winning the finals. You upgrade at this point. You don't stay the course. You upgrade, and that's what the Celtics have done. I think now they need a backup big. But that you can find that either through free agency. I know Thomas Bryant's a name that's been talked about. Dwight Howard, for some reason, is a name that's been talked about, or by trade. Centers don't really have a lot of value in the NBA unless you're Rudy Gobert. And so I think that's the only piece now the Celtics need to add, and they should be absolutely considered one of, if not the title favorites for next season, because they at this point are better than they were when the season just ended.
Oh, without question. I think they are the favorite right now in Vegas because Golden State, which will make other moves if necessary. Maybe acquiring Kevin Durant could be the move that blows everyone else's move away if Golden State decides to get in on that.
They have the ammo.
They certainly do. I mean, you got Andrew Wiggins, you got Jonathan Kuminga, Miles Moody, Jordan Poole. I mean, you could put a couple of those guys together. They've got their draft picks. Wiseman. I mean, they've got plenty of ammo to go get Kevin Durant, which I think would probably make, most basketball fans puke because, where does it end with Durant just going to ready-made situations? This time he'd be joining the defending champions, not just the team that won 73 games and ultimately lost in the finals. But, I think Golden State lost a few pieces, right? They lost Gary Payton II and Otto Porter. But, I mean, they'll find people that can fill in the gaps there. And they also have these young players that are going to play more next year. Jonathan Kuminga, Miles Moody. If Wiseman comes back, they'll be just fine. So, they're probably still the favorites in the West. And I would think the Celtics now are the favorites in the East without question by adding two really nice pieces in the offseason. And also something that allows you to maybe move on from other players if you want to, because they do have a lot of money tied up in that backcourt. Yeah. Brogdon's making $22 million a year. Marcus Smart and Derek White, both around $17 million a year. So you've got $57 million invested in those three players. So, the possibility exists that they move on from Derek White or even Marcus Smart. But I think
Pritchard
they've made the moves they have to. Pritchard's a guy that you can move on from. Maybe you get one of those picks back, and your 9-man rotation would be intact with those other players. So, they need another big so they take some pressure off Al Horford and Robert Williams III. But as you said, you can find a guy that can give you 14, 16 minutes a night, and allow you to rest those other two bigs that you have.
Yeah, I mean, so, credit where credit's due to Brad Stevens. I think he's done a tremendous job. I don't know how you could be upset with either of those moves. You basically traded nothing. Again, Sap, the pick that they traded to Indiana is still top 12 protected. So, if everything fell apart this season and everybody got hurt, you still have the control over the pick. So Indiana really just was like, they just wanted to move on for the money. It was a salary dump. That was all it was about. Yep. Maybe they take a flyer on Neesmith. I don't know. I like him when they drafted him. He really was inconsistent. Maybe that's the situation he needs to be in where he just gets minutes. He wasn't going to get any here. So I guess for Indiana's standpoint, okay, you got somebody that maybe you can develop. We'll see. But, before we wrap up, Sap, I think that point you made is really the only point that's going to matter for the rest of the offseason is the Kevin Durant thing, the specter of that, how that wherever he goes, it will shake up the hierarchy in the NBA. So right now we look at the Warriors and the Celtics. Okay, they're the two favorites right now. They met in the finals last year, but the Durant thing is looming. Wherever he goes will suddenly be, whether it's Phoenix, whether it's Miami, whether it's Toronto, wherever the hell he ends up with. And I think there's other teams that should be really in on it. They would suddenly be a legitimate title contender, regardless of how much they have to give up for him. They're not gonna trade for him with a completely bare bones roster. You're trading for Kevin Durant with the intention of trying to win a championship. So there's still a lot. That shoe to fall is going to completely shake up the NBA landscape.
Yeah, without question. Let me throw one team out there real quickly before we wrap up. And I wrote a column last week on Full Press Coverage about my long shot special right now to win the championship next year is the Denver Nuggets, who are 22-1. The thing about Denver is they have the two-time reigning MVP and Nikola Jokic. The last time there was a two-time reigning MVP who didn't really play well in the playoffs, or his team did play well in the playoffs, was Giannis, who then the next year won a championship, right? And again, sometimes you see these things happen in pairs or in threes. They also didn't have Jamal Murray all of last year. Michael Porter played 9 games, and they still won 48 games, and Jokic was the MVP of the league. Could you see Denver get into the sweepstakes for Kevin Durant? Look, any team in the league could, because, I mean, we're talking about Kevin Durant here, and it could be Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., whatever, draft picks, whatever. And now you're pairing up Durant with Nikola Jokic. And again, let's not forget the owner of the Denver Nuggets is Stan Kroenke, who owns the Rams, who just won a Super Bowl. He and his wife own the Colorado Avalanche, who just won the Stanley Cup. I think they like winning. They kind of like
things are breaking well for the Kroenke family.
Doing okay. So maybe they're like, let's go spend some money on the basketball team and win a championship in that sport as well. And man, you put Durant with Nikola Jokic, that'd be pretty impressive, wouldn't it?
I love it, Sap. I wanted to mention them too. I'm glad you did. I think that if Denver doesn't put forth an offer of either Murray or Porter Jr., hell, maybe even both of them, I would do it for Durant. I think that Jokic plus Durant plus the rest of the Nuggets roster is pretty damn good. That's a championship contending team, a legitimate championship contending team. If I was Denver, I would be really aggressively pursuing this. Same Dallas, I don't think has the pieces to move, but we've been talking about this for a while. Just if you give Luka somebody to play with, anybody, I think they are a championship contender. If you give him Kevin Durant, they might be the championship favorites. So yeah. if I'm Denver, if I'm beating down the Nets door, what's it going to take? And outside of Jokic, I would seriously consider anything for Kevin Durant, because I think that suddenly vaults them to being potentially the championship favorites in the NBA. And for a team that's never won a title or heck been to the finals, that's the move you got to make.
You can make a case that Denver Nuggets are the best franchise in league history that's never made it to the finals, because they're always there. And they were there when they came into the league in 1976. I think their very first year in the league, they won 53 games. They were a title contender, but they've never been able to break through. That could put them over the top. And again, Stan Kroenke and his wife, Ann Walton Kroenke, they have billions upon billions of dollars. I mean, heck, they spent $5-6 billion building SoFi in Southern California. Yep. What's Kevin Durant's contract? That's like pocket change for them.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit. And I think that for a team that, has a good fan base and has been perennially pretty good, to vault them in the championship contention, it would be great for the league. I think Durant would really like playing with Jokic, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Maybe he could learn to ski and would like living in Denver. I don't know. But we'll see. That's a great idea, Sep. I fully endorse it. I give it my stamp of approval.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right. So that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Chet and Sap. Thanks to Full Press Coverage. We'll be back later talking about all these more moves that happened. We didn't really get into the DeJounte Murray trade or the Rudy Gobert trade. We will talk about all those things and all these things that happened and all the things that are going to happen. So make sure you stay with us and check out our social medias for show announcement at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer. And we will be back soon with a new edition of the pod. So thanks for listening, everybody. And we will talk to you later. See you, everybody.